that young mother gunned down while simply walking with her baby on a summer evening. Tonight, we are hearing from the victim's own mother.
Cops now say text messages recovered from her phone reveal she had been planning to meet her ex-boyfriend at a park.
It was like extremely loud, like a boom.
What you're about to hear will challenge everything you believe about domestic violence protection in America. Because when a 20-year-old mother gets executed in broad daylight after doing everything the system told her to do, we need to stop calling these isolated incidents and start calling them what they really are: systemic failures. Before we continue, if real-life family crime grips you, hit like, drop your thoughts in the comments, and smash subscribe with the bell so you never miss a new case on Fatal Family Network. Asia Johnson carried herself like someone who'd figured out life's priorities early. 20 years old with 2 children, she moved through the world with purpose. Her days started before sunrise, getting her toddler son ready, feeding her 3-month-old daughter, then heading to work. Her home base was Manhattan's Upper East Side, where her mother Lisa lived. It wasn't the penthouse part of the Upper East Side you see in movies. It was the real part, where working families squeezed into small apartments and made it work. Lisa DeSort had raised Asia there, and now she helped raise Asia's children. 3 generations under one roof when things were good. Asia had met Isaac Argro when she was 19. 22 years old, he seemed like he had his life together. The details of their early relationship remain private. Asia wasn't one to air her business. But by the time she was pregnant with his child, the mask had slipped. The first incident happened when she was 6 months along. Asia showed up at her mother's apartment, shaking. She wouldn't say much at first, just held her stomach and cried. Finally, the truth came out. Isaac had pushed her, hard. Pushed his pregnant girlfriend hard enough to send her running to her mother. "I'll call the police," Lisa said. "No, Mama, please. It'll make things worse." But Lisa DeSort didn't raise her daughter to be anybody's victim. She made the call herself. The police came. They took statements. They filed reports. January 1st, 2022. It's all in the official records. Asia told them she didn't want Isaac in the baby's life. The officers nodded, wrote it down, and left. And that should have been the beginning of the end. A clean break. A fresh start for a young mother who'd already shown she could handle whatever life threw at her. But Isaac Argro wasn't interested in clean breaks. The calls started almost immediately. Then the texts. Then showing up places he shouldn't have known she'd be. Asia changed her routine, stayed at her mother's more often, tried to become invisible. But you can't hide when you're 9 months pregnant. You can't disappear when you have a toddler who needs consistency. And you definitely can't vanish when the person hunting you is the father of your unborn child, someone who believes that biology gives him rights. The baby came in March, a beautiful girl who looked just like her mother. Isaac showed up at the hospital. Security removed him, but the message was clear. He wasn't going away. The protective bubble of pregnancy was gone. Now there was a baby, a living, breathing connection between them that he could use as leverage. "You need to get away from him," Lisa told her daughter. "Completely away." Asia knew her mother was right. The pushing had been just the beginning. The threats were escalating. He'd grab her arm hard enough to leave marks, corner her when she tried to leave, tell her exactly what would happen if she kept his daughter from him. So Asia Johnson did what the system tells women to do. She sought help, found a domestic violence shelter in Manhattan that would take her and both children, packed what she could carry, and left the only neighborhood she'd ever known. The shelter was supposed to be a secret, a safe space where women could rebuild without looking over their shoulders. But somehow, Isaac found out. Maybe he followed her. Maybe someone told him. Maybe he just knew her well enough to guess. The calls to the shelter started immediately. "Tell Asia I want to see my daughter. She can't hide forever. I know where she is." The staff tried to shield her, but what could they really do? He wasn't technically breaking any laws by calling. He hadn't shown up in person yet, and Asia, exhausted from newborn nights and toddler days, just wanted it to stop. She started splitting time between the shelter and her mother's apartment, never staying in one place too long, always checking her surroundings. teaching her toddler son not to talk to strangers, especially not strangers who asked about mommy. Her mother watched this dance with growing alarm. "Why don't you get one of those protection orders?" Lisa asked. Asia had tried, but the system that's supposed to protect women has 1,000 small ways of failing them. The paperwork was confusing. The process was slow. She needed documentation of threats. And underneath it all was fear. Not just fear of Isaac, but fear of making things worse. Every woman who's been in Asia's position knows this calculation. Will reporting make him back off or explode? Will the system protect you or just make you a bigger target? Asia's text messages from this period paint a picture of a woman trying to stay one step ahead. She'd message friends and family constantly, letting them know where she was. At the store, back at mama's, taking the baby to the clinic, building a paper trail just in case. One message stands out, sent to a family member weeks before her death. "If something happens to me, it was Isaac." But even as she planned for the worst, Asia kept pushing forward. She went to work. She cared for her children. Which makes what happened next even more devastating. Because Asia Johnson's story isn't about a woman who didn't see the danger coming. It's about a woman who saw it clearly, reported it repeatedly, and died anyway. Isaac Argro had a pattern. Every abuser does. They start small, testing boundaries like a predator, learning the layout of a house. A harsh word here, a grabbed wrist there. Then they escalate, always escalating, until violence becomes the only language they speak. By late spring, Asia was living a double life. The domestic violence shelter should have been her fortress. These places operate on secrecy, unmarked buildings, unlisted addresses, staff trained to spot and deter threats. But Isaac had connections. He had determination. And most dangerously, he had the kind of rage that makes men believe they own the women who try to leave them. He found the shelter's phone number, started calling daily, sometimes hourly. The staff followed protocol, refusing to confirm or deny any resident's presence. What people misunderstand about domestic violence shelters is they're not prisons. Women there still have jobs to go to. Children still need doctor's appointments. Life doesn't stop because you're hiding. And every trip outside those doors is a calculated risk. Asia started varying her routes, left at different times. But Manhattan isn't that big when someone's hunting you. And Isaac was always hunting. The psychological torture was almost worse than the physical threats. He'd show up at places she'd been just minutes after she left, close enough to let her know he was watching, far enough to avoid arrest. Lisa DeSort watched her daughter shrink into herself. The vibrant 20-year-old who'd once posted confidently online now moved through the world like someone expecting an ambush. Asia tried navigating the bureaucracy while caring for a newborn and a toddler. By June, something had shifted in Isaac's approach. The calls became more direct. He wanted to see his daughter, not asking anymore, demanding. He started mentioning specific places Asia had been, specific times, letting her know that wherever she thought she was hiding, he could find her. The negotiation started the way these things always do. Maybe if she let him see the baby once, he'd calm down. Maybe if she gave a little, he'd stop pushing. Every domestic violence counselor will tell you this is the most dangerous thinking. But when you're exhausted and scared and just want peace, dangerous thoughts start seeming reasonable. She was texting more frequently, almost obsessively updating her location. Her messages had a new urgency. Asia had sent explicit warnings about Isaac. The kind of messages that haunt you forever when you read them after the fact. But even as she documented the danger, Asia was trapped in the oldest bind faced by abuse victims. The system required proof of immediate threat for serious intervention. But waiting for that immediate threat might mean waiting too long. You can't get help until he hurts you badly enough, but by then, it might be too late. June 29th started like any other day. Asia got her children ready, normal mother things on a normal summer day. But nothing had been normal for months, and this day would end everything. The meeting was arranged through manipulation disguised as co-parenting. Isaac claimed he had items for their daughter, baby supplies. Asia made a decision that afternoon. She would meet him, but she wouldn't be stupid about it. She chose a public location, East 95th Street near a playground. Broad daylight, people around, and most importantly, she'd create a record. Those final text messages reveal a woman who knew exactly what she was walking into. She described what Isaac was wearing, specified the exact location, even mentioned his demeanor. This wasn't paranoia, this was preparation. The kind of preparation you do when you've accepted that the system won't save you, so you'll at least make sure they can prosecute your killer. The surveillance footage from that evening tells a story without words. Isaac Argro appears on camera wearing all black, hoodie up, face partially obscured. The body language of someone who's made a decision and is now just waiting to execute it. He didn't bring baby supplies. Of course he didn't. That was never the plan. Asia appeared on the same cameras pushing her stroller, her 3-month-old daughter sleeping inside. She moved with purpose, but not panic. Even knowing the danger, even having sent those precautionary texts, she showed up. Maybe she believed the public setting would protect her. Maybe she thought he wouldn't dare. Maybe she was just tired of running. They met near the Samuel Seabury playground. It's a cheerful spot during the day. Children playing, parents chatting. By 8:30 in the evening, it was quieter but not deserted. Still public enough that violence should have been unthinkable. The interaction was brief. Witnesses would later describe seeing a man approach a woman with a stroller. No prolonged conversation, no visible argument, just a man walking up to a woman like he had something to say. What he had was a gun. The shot was precise. Asia Johnson crumpled to the pavement instantly. Her baby, miraculously, stayed asleep in the stroller. The aftermath unfolded in seconds that felt like hours. Isaac fled immediately, his escape route clearly planned. Someone called 911. Another person checked on the baby. A third tried to help Asia, though it was already too late. While somewhere in the distance, sirens began their approach. One witness, close enough to see but too far to help, later described the gunman's movements as methodical. This wasn't a crime of passion in the traditional sense. Asia was rushed to Metropolitan Hospital, but the outcome was never in doubt. A point-blank gunshot to the head leaves no room for medical miracles. She was pronounced dead within the hour, becoming another statistic in the epidemic of intimate partner violence. Meanwhile, her baby daughter remained in that stroller, unharmed but forever changed. 3 months old and already motherless. The youngest witness to a crime that would reshape multiple families. But Isaac Argro had made a critical error in his planning. In his arrogance or panic or both, he'd forgotten that Manhattan is a city of cameras. Every block, every corner, every storefront. His transformation from shooter to fugitive was captured in digital clarity. More damaging still were the calls he made after the murder. Unable to resist asserting control even in his flight, he contacted Asia's family, asked about the baby, made threats against others who'd helped Asia. Each call another piece of evidence, another nail in the case against him. The manhunt was swift and focused. NYPD didn't need to cast a wide net. They knew exactly who they were looking for. Isaac's photo hit every precinct, every patrol car, every officer's phone. The city that never sleeps turned its insomnia toward finding Asia Johnson's killer. Tips poured in. Sightings were reported and investigated. The infrastructure of 8 million people became a net closing around one man who thought he could commit murder in broad daylight and disappear. The investigation into Asia Johnson's murder began while her blood was still warm on the pavement. First responders secured the scene, preserving every piece of evidence within that critical golden hour. The baby, still in her stroller, became evidence herself, a living witness who couldn't speak but whose mere presence told investigators this was no random street crime. Detectives worked backwards from that devastating moment. The surveillance footage painted a damning timeline. Asia's phone, recovered at the scene, held those final text messages. Her careful documentation of Isaac's appearance, the location pin she'd shared, timestamps that showed a woman preparing her own crime scene. Detectives reading those messages understood immediately this victim had done their job for them. The manhunt intensified through the night. Isaac's photos circulated through every channel available to law enforcement. The internet's appetite for justice merged with NYPD's systematic search. By morning, they had a trail. Argro's phone pinged off towers heading into Brooklyn. Witnesses reported seeing a man matching his description at various points along the escape route. Each sighting narrowed the search area. The calls Isaac made after the shooting became his undoing. Investigators traced those calls, triangulated positions, built a net of data points that led inevitably to one conclusion. July 1st, 2 days after the murder, officers surrounded a location in Brooklyn where Isaac Argro was believed to be hiding. The arrest was swift, professional, anticlimactic, no shootout, no dramatic chase, just a man in handcuffs being led to a police car while news cameras rolled. The footage of Isaac Argro's perp walk became iconic. Reporters shouted questions as detectives led him into Manhattan criminal court. His mumbled claim of innocence fell flat against the mountain of evidence already assembled. The surveillance footage, the witness accounts, the phone records, the discarded clothing found along his escape route, tested and confirmed for gunshot residue. At arraignment, Judge Eric Schumacher reviewed the charges: second-degree murder, 2 counts of criminal possession of a weapon. The prosecution, led by Assistant District Attorney Brittany DeCresanti, laid out their case in stark terms. This was premeditated execution. The defendant had lured his victim to a meeting under false pretenses, arrived disguised and armed, and shot her at point-blank range while she pushed their infant child. Bail was denied. The risk of flight was obvious, but more than that, the sheer brutality of the crime demanded detention. Isaac Argro would await trial from a cell, the system finally containing him in a way it had failed to do when Asia was alive. The legal proceedings moved forward with the grinding inevitability of justice. Argro pleaded not guilty, as defendants do. His attorneys would eventually craft arguments about emotional distress, about custody disputes, about moments of passion. But how do you argue passion when there's video of your client pacing, waiting, preparing? How do you claim spontaneity when the victim texted friends about your outfit before you'd even met? Meanwhile, Lisa DeSort became the voice her daughter could no longer be. In interviews, she spoke with the controlled fury of a mother who'd watched the system fail. She'd welcomed Isaac into her home, watched him charm her daughter, seen the mask slip during pregnancy, made the calls to police, helped Asia flee to a shelter, done everything a mother could do, and it hadn't been enough. Her words carried weight because they weren't just about grief. They were about accountability. The city failed her daughter. The state failed her daughter. Every institution designed to protect women from violent men had multiple chances to intervene, and none did enough. Asia Johnson's murder exposed the fatal gap between what we tell abuse victims to do and what actually protects them. She reported, she fled, she documented. She took every precaution except the one that might have saved her. But should a 20-year-old mother have to vanish entirely to escape the father of her child? The case rippled through advocacy circles. Here was proof that following the playbook wasn't enough, that shelters aren't fortresses, that police reports don't stop bullets, that sharing your location only helps them find your body faster. For the thousands of women currently in Asia's position, pregnant or newly postpartum, dealing with escalating abuse, trying to navigate systems that move too slowly, her story serves as both warning and call to action. The warning is clear. The danger is real, and the protections are insufficient. The call to action is equally clear. We need fundamental changes in how we respond to intimate partner violence. Asia's children carry forward a complicated legacy. Her son, old enough to remember his mother, but young enough to heal. Her daughter, who witnessed everything and remembers nothing. They're being raised by a grandmother who channels her grief into ensuring they know who their mother was. Not just how she died, but how she lived. The woman who insisted on new clothes, who worked while exhausted, who had dreams of nursing school and normal life. The case remains in New York's Supreme Court system, grinding toward resolution. But whatever happens to Isaac Argro, the larger questions persist. How many more Asia Johnsons are out there right now, texting their locations to family members just in case? How many are sleeping in shelters that feel more like waiting rooms for tragedy? These aren't rhetorical questions. They have answers measured in lives lost and families destroyed. Asia Johnson did everything right in a system designed to fail her. Until that system changes, her story isn't just a tragedy, it's a prediction. The Upper East Side playground where Asia died has returned to normal. Children play, parents watch. Life continues in that relentless New York way. But for those who know what happened there, who understand that a young mother's blood once stained that sidewalk, normal feels different. It feels fragile. It feels temporary. Because somewhere in this city, right now, another woman is leaving another shelter to meet another ex who claims to have baby supplies. The only question is whether her story ends differently. For Fatal Family Network, this has been the story of Asia Johnson, a mother who saw death coming and faced it anyway. Remember her name, remember her fight, and remember that she deserved better. We all do. Family should be a refuge, but even the closest ties can fracture. Stay alert, look out for one another, and reach out if you sense danger. See you in the next story here on Fatal Family Network. Thanks for watching.